Thanks for joining us for episode 15 of the SBP Podcast, the voice of mobile film. I'm your host, Susie Botello. Today we will take you to New York to meet Raphael Corkhill. Raphael is one of the leading actors in Time to Pay Off Debt, written and directed by Conrad Mess. Conrad Mess is a global famed iPhone filmmaker. So I want to share something with you regarding the 2018 International Mobile Film Festival, which is due to take place in San Diego, April 28th and 29th. So we just announced that beginning this summer, we're going to be accepting films in a new category, cosplay. That's right. This new category is for cosplay films shot with smartphones, and they can be just about any genre, just as documentaries, music, action films, comedies, whatever. You can find out more during our film festival, but if you can't make it to the film festival, you'll find out more about it on our website later this summer. Okay, if you're one of the filmmakers who submitted a film to our film festival, then guess what? We're just about ready to publish the names of all of you on our website. And so everybody who made it to this year's film festival and whose films are going to be screened during the film festival are going to get their names published on our website. If you are one of them, you'll be one of the star filmmakers during our film festival. And if you're attending, you are going to rock your stardom on the red carpet. You're going to network with others in the film festival, participate in the Q&A, and you're going to receive the star treatment, which we are pretty well known for. We are happy that we have one of our returning sponsors this year, Red Giant Software. They have an excellent reputation with professional indie filmmakers. So go to their website and check out their software that can turn your film into eye candy. www.redgiant.com. So are you all ready for our interview? Oh, okay, wait. One more thing. Our Patreon page is up, and it's looking for more rock stars to join us. Patreon is for creators, and obviously we're creators. So our creations include this podcast, which takes work to provide you with every single week. But we're adamant about this because we know that mobile film needs a voice, and this is a great platform for it. But we also create and continue to create since early 2009 our platform in San Diego to celebrate mobile film with the official International Mobile Film Festival. You can find out about our film festival and other programs that we created and continue to work on for people of all ages all over the world to rock the film world making films using mobile phones. You can go to www.internationalmobilefilmfestival.com and get all the info. After this episode, go to our Patreon page so that you can become a patron. And you can receive the benefits as a show of gratitude. And they're not only discounts and freebies, they also include bonus podcasts, including our guests. Our guest, Raphael Corkhill, will share details about how actors are taking part, literally, in the gaming industry, and you will find out which popular games you can find him acting in. You'll find a link on our show notes, but you can go to www.patreon.com/SBP Podcast. Hey, speaking of Raphael, let's go. Everybody, I'm here with Raphael Corkhill in New York, New York. How are you doing, Raphael?
Doing very well, Susie, very well. A little chilly out here, but I'm getting some nice Southern California vibes from you, so all good.
Oh, good. Well, we have chili here, but we add cheese.
Oh, there you go. Yes, no, here we have snow.
Yes. Oh. Well, we actually do get excited about snow here, too, you know.
But I was in LA for about 6 years, and I don't think I did I see snow once? No, I don't think I saw snow once. I
Hmm.
think it was, I think, the coldest it got was kind of putting on a light jacket. But here it's serious. Here you have to kind of wrap up.
But you are from England. I think you can handle the cool. I mean, we put on a jacket when it's 69 or something here.
Yeah, as soon as there's a cloud that goes across the sun, my gosh,
It's
you
like,
better wrap up.
woo.
No, I mean, London is famous for its rain.
Hmm.
But I mean, it's also makes everything really green and kind of very vibrant and luscious as well. But yeah, you're right. No, I grew up in London, but I'm half Welsh as well. So we spent a lot of time in Wales, in South Wales with my grandparents, which is where they lived. And I went to school in Wales for a little bit as well. But then, moved out to the US when I was 19 to come to college. And then stayed on here for my master's, my MFA in acting at USC, University of Southern California.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically spent my good amount of time as a Trojan, and then stayed on in LA for another 3 years before moving out back to New York, where I've been for the past four or so years, and I love it here.
Wow. Well, great. I think let's share with our listeners the reason why, or let me share a little bit about that, why we're interviewing you or why we're even having a discussion with you, just sharing these stories. And the reason is because Raphael is an actor, and we met through a film that Conrad Mess, who is one of the most famed actors in the iPhone filmmaking actually industry. And
Absolutely,
Conrad Mess was definitely one of the pioneers. He started out with film, The Fixer, with an iPhone 4 when it first came out. I could tell his story with my eyes closed, but I'm not going to do that because it's about you. But I do want to relate the connection to our listeners. And so Conrad Mess is meticulous with his filmmaking. His films are the kinds of films that you go to the theater to see because he treats them. It's not just about shooting them. It's a lot of work that he does with them in post production.
Oh, very much so. I mean, even number one is just the story is always so well written. Because you could spend hundreds of thousands, millions on a movie, have the best special effects, the best lighting, the best cinematography, whatever, best music, but unless there's a good story there, it's just not going to work. So that's really what drew me to this movie. I was intrigued by the fact that it was shot on an iPhone. I'd never really kind of encountered that until encountering Conrad's work. But then looking at all his previous work, he did The Fixer. He's done a few other really extraordinary
The Other Side,
films.
which was all shot on green screen.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was amazing. And that got so much buzz that it was very clear, this is the world's most famous and foremost iPhone filmmaker.
Yeah.
So he cast a bunch of New York actors and then came out here and got a great crew together. We shot the thing, I think, over 3 or 4 days at this bar on location at this kind of speakeasy in Manhattan. That was one of the original two speakeasies.
And it was a famed location, right?
Very much so, yeah. It's pretty cool. It's now an amazing place to take people because it's hidden away behind the facade is this toy shop that isn't actually a toy shop anymore. But you have to go down an alley and then up some stairs and then they've kept during Prohibition in America when booze was banned, there were two. I'm sure there were many speakeasies all over New York, but there are only two that are kind of still, bars, and this was one of them.
And why did they call him Speakeasy?
Why did they? I don't. Presumably, you were able to just speak freely there, or I don't know. Do you know why?
No, I don't. I suppose I thought for some reason maybe you knew. Because I've heard that term so many times before, in movies and things like that.
Yeah, I know. I feel maybe my impression is that it was just because once you got there, you come, you could, everyone was there and knew everyone was in on the secret, and maybe they could just, chat away and be breaking the law in kind of a pleasant way.
That's right, huh? Although, I don't know, somebody took me in a back alley and said, let's go have a drink, and took me to the back alley and
You have to
down
think
some stairs.
twice.
Yeah, I'd be like, am I get knocked out here?
I know. Well, they still kind of keep it. I don't know if it's authentic or what, but they still serve because it's like craft cocktails or whatever. These these really nice cocktails that they serve in teacups,
Oh.
little porcelain white teacups, and then I think the beer they serve in the cans, and they give it to you in a brown paper bag. So it's this really kind of very cool, very trendy New York crowd, drinking cocktails out of teacups and beer out of brown bags. It's pretty funny.
Just like downtown LA, right?
I guess parts of downtown LA can definitely be like that.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, we actually, in our film festival in 2016, which was the year before the last one that we had, we screened the film, and we awarded Conrad Mess the best iPhone filmmaker in the world, basically.
Wow.
And we presented that award to him there, but he couldn't make it, out to San Diego at that time. But we still presented that award, and I remember, him warning me that when we were screening the film, that it was first of all, it was the first U.S. The first screening in the U.S. And I think it was screening somewhere else the next day, and so he said, don't even let anyone snap a photo of it.
Oh, wow.
So I had to tell everybody, we never tell people that in our film festival, for
Sure.
mobile phones, turn off your phones, please.
Turn off your phones. And
we
every
just
bit
don't
ironic.
do that, right? We're on the contrary, turn it on,
Absolutely.
But we had to tell everybody, turn off your phones and all this stuff. And we got to see your film on the big screen, and your acting, which is
amazing.
Superior as it was. I mean, obviously, everybody's acting was wonderful. But you were one of the top characters, one of the main characters.
I mean, I tell you, one of the great things about the script was that it was really like what they call like an ensemble piece. It wasn't just one or two leads and everyone else was kind of supporting everyone. I mean, what the premise of Time to Pay Off Debts was that everyone is there and they've got some kind of debt that they have to pay, some kind of spiritual debt, some kind of, karmic debt for something they've done wrong in the past. And so each character is bringing some kind of backstory, and they all kind of interweave, and that's really what the film is about, that we can't really escape our pasts as much as we might try, or as fast as we might try to run. We always have to face up to facts at some point and pay off our debts. And so that was one of the really cool things about it, was that each character was really fleshed out in full, and all the actors as well, really brought some really wonderful work. So I remember being really impressed when we were shooting, the fact that everyone, was fully prepared, brought really distinct choices, and really just, the whole shoot flowed so smoothly. We had a lot to shoot in those 3 days. But, with a great AD, the assistant director, Nayara, who's actually Spanish as well. She's from, I think, Basque country.
Oh, okay.
She kept everything really tightly reined in and kept everything on schedule. Cracked it out. It worked. Yeah, I think it worked really well. My guy was this guy who'd, been in and out of the army, fought in wars, and had a kind of, checkered history, and was now with his kind of dopey partner in crime trying to rob this bar. And yet, lo and behold, the bar is kind of a mob bar. And we have a bit of an encounter with the mob boss and a few other kind of crazy characters, and it doesn't work out too well, actually, for anyone. Bit of a thriller, but some great, humorous moments in there as well. So kind of an ideal piece.
Yeah, and the texture of the film was more like like an old gangster's. Almost, It wasn't completely black and white. It was an off-white.
Yeah, it's kind of drained because he wanted to have that, I guess, that 1940s, 1930s black and white feel.
Yeah.
But also enhance it with, flashes of, kind of warm candlelight, or, certainly blood. The blood when it
Yeah.
splatters is bright red. So yeah, no, it's the whole kind of aesthetic of it is really, it's that, I think he's gone for that film noir type of thing.
Yeah.
Which is full of mystery, full of darkness, shadows and darkness and shade. But also quite bright white, type of thing as well. So yeah, I think it's really inspired by some of those film noir 1940s, some of that Raymond Chandler type vibe. And yeah, it's set in kind of, just after the Second World War. It's a powerful piece, really strong, beautiful.
Yeah, what's really impressive and why, I mention him a lot of times, when I'm doing workshops and things like that as well, is because a lot of people think they have to have schooling, before they launch into filmmaking as a director or anything. But, he proves that you can have a dream. He grew up watching films and wanting to be a director. He never had any formal schooling, education, I should say.
Yeah.
And so for him, it was like, and a lot of people, now he grew up, in Spain, he's in Zaragoza, but he had that dream. And for a lot of people in other countries, their connection to America is through films and movies.
Absolutely.
So for him, that impression of, oh my God, I'm going to watch this movie and that movie and things like that, and I want to be a director. I mean, there weren't, film schools in every corner. Here, you're in New York, I'm in San Diego, but we're very close to LA, in California, right? So film schools are more popular in these places,
Very much so. No, I mean, I think what Conrad brings is he's just got a vision and a story, and he's just got obviously such a great imagination. And I think at least that's what I look for as an actor is really just is the story, is just someone with something to say about the world in which he or she lives.
Yeah.
And I think the nature of mobile filmmaking is that it's just so much more accessible. Pretty much everyone has a smartphone nowadays that they can, with probably an amazing camera, and maybe even some editing software on the iPhone. At least on my iPhone, they've got iMovie as well, so you can shoot something, edit it, and then upload it, all on one single thing, which is, revolutionary. So
but it
you
can
don't have
also be distracting because it can distract people. People tend to forget about the story because of all this. Everything you just said, and plus then you start talking about gimbals and things like that, and it's like, well, it's a whole world full of toys between that and the apps and everything, and you forget. It's like, oh, I have a camera, I can shoot anything, and then you start making a movie, but you have a movie without a story, right? You're not going to attract actors like you.
Yeah, also, or just, number one, you're just not going to keep the audience engaged. If it's not really that clear what the movie is about or who these characters are or why they're in this place interacting with each other, the audience is going to lose interest. And even if those things are in place, if there's not something keeping the audience watching, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? That guy just said that thing to that woman. What's she going to do now? Then yeah, it's just not going to be as intriguing as a movie that does have those qualities. And these things don't have to be groundbreakingly original. They don't have to be something that no one's ever said in the past. It can be a little twist on, your favorite filmmaker or something that your favorite film deals with, a scene from that, but just kind of, updated to a different scenario or a different kind of group of characters. But as long as that thread of why does this matter? Like, why do I, the audience, care? Why should I care about what's happening here? As long as that's there, then the movie will be great. The other stuff can really help, the special effects and, the really cool music score and the slow motion, dropping of a glass.
Yeah.
That stuff can be really cool, but it's, it's on top of everything. That stuff alone isn't going to make a movie
you
cool.
have to have a reason. Actually, you just brought that up, but there are things like that in the story in Time to Pay Off Debts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they are very important, and they're very much connected to the story. There's a reason for them. Explain one of them at least.
Absolutely.
Like your favorite one.
I think when my kind of bungling, hopeless partner, when he, I don't want to give a spoiler, but he, it doesn't end up well for any of us. And so when he gets shot, and there's this incredible, splatter of blood and, kind of smoke coming from the gunshot. Obviously, none of that happens, because we're not going to have live firearms on set and definitely no
You're not killing
real blood
actors on it.
Yeah, fortunately not. So there's that, and then, when the film's finally done, you're blown away by how real it looks. And, you can even smell the gunpowder almost because it's that real. But the thing is, what's so important is that moment, all those special effects, all that kind of grittiness, all that spectacle is in service of something bigger, which is the story. Whereas I think some films that I've seen that don't work quite as well have story as a kind of excuse to kind of make a really cool shot. To have something look really like the spectacle, the prettiness, the kind of, wow, doesn't that look really cool? I mean, that's a bit shallow. Do you know what I mean? That should be in service of something bigger than itself, rather than have a story designed to, show off, some slow motion action sequence. It's about a balance. But yeah, I mean, look, certainly as an actor, that's what I look for most of all, is just that really cool story. What's going to keep the audience really gripped, and there's so much content out there nowadays. People can watch. I myself watch YouTube. Almost as much as I watch TV, just because there's some extraordinary content out there. That people are making without formal film school training, because they've happened to found. They've just happened to got something really cool, a great idea that they then go and shoot. But because there's so much content out there, there's so much more competition to keep audiences watching, especially when it's something like YouTube, when it's just like, all right, no, I'm done after 30 seconds. What's next?
A lot of things tend to get diluted there.
Interesting, diluted in terms of...
In terms of the size of the... Well, like they say, you could be a fish in a pond or a fish in the ocean, right? And I would say that YouTube is more like that fish in the ocean, right?
Sure, yeah.
Because if you're a filmmaker and you're putting a film there now, there it goes along with a billion films. I'm exaggerating a little. But if you go somewhere else, like, let's say, let's just be honest. If you go to a smaller website, which is centered on a particular genre, say, of films, and then you go there looking for something, you're not having to swim through all these other fish to get to the one that you like, and watch 30 seconds here and 30 seconds there and 30 seconds there, and then it adds up, and before you know it, you're like, I gotta go.
I know. Wow, now I've actually got to go to work or go to school. No, I think you're right. If it's just one huge kind of ocean of content, and you've got sci-fi thrown in there with, romance thrown in there with animation thrown in there with, Lord knows what, then, it's all a bit of a hodgepodge, and it's just too much.
Yeah.
It's like when, you put a dog in a room full of balls. He's like, well, I don't know which one to play with. There are just too many. So whereas if it's a little bit more specific and kind of focused, so it's just, a sci-fi movie among other sci-fi movies.
Right.
First of all, you're going to have, an audience there who is probably more likely to like your work because they're predisposed to like sci-fi. Yeah. There's just a much better chance of your movie getting seen and then watched to its completion if it's good. I think some of the best films that I've seen have. So I work with. I'm a member of BAFTA, which is the British Academy of Film and Television.
Oh.
It's the British equivalent of the Academy. The American organization that does the Oscars. We've got BAFTA in the UK. And I was a judge for their student films a year or so ago. And so they're all short films. They're all 20 minutes or less, usually around 10 minutes. And many of them are shot on iPhones, because, unless someone goes to NYU or some big, expensive, endowed film school, it's going to be much easier to shoot on something that you can control and you don't have to hire expensive equipment to use. And some of them, some of the really wonderful content was produced by student filmmakers on iPhones. But they just, brought a very professional approach. That was an extraordinary insight to see the amount of quality out there.
Yeah, there's so much more out there now. And that is due to, the phones are getting better, but the reason they're getting better is because the people making the phones, and when they get to the camera parts, they're actually focusing, no pun intended, they're basically focusing on the lenses as well. And
interesting.
Because the lenses are really the drawback to create the depth of field, like the iPhone X, right? For example,
yeah,
it's able to kind of cheat that a little better.
Okay.
And they're constantly working on the lenses. As long as they don't stop trying, ultimately they will get there.
Oh my gosh!
Remember
absolutely.
when
I mean,
a computer chip was as big as a car, right? I mean, not literally, but and now they're so tiny you can barely see them if you drop one.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's the nature of technology of the world, is that things will evolve to that endpoint where it's just almost unimaginable years ago. So yeah, it makes complete sense that the things I'm always wondering as well, tech companies are so far ahead of the curve, and their engineers are so intelligent and passionate about what they do, that probably tech exists right now at Apple or Google or HTC that we will see in 5 years from now. So even though it already exists, the market means that it'll get released at a time that's where it can make the most amount of money. So it's just such a fast process and speed of development. I mean,
there's stuff that can't even get out for a general consumer because it's so, like, talk about the self-driving cars, for example. They're practically ready to go, but then you have to deal with the other cars on the road and traffic and the roads and the conditions and all these things are not. Same thing with flying cars. We could probably have flying cars already, except for the sky doesn't have traffic lights and things like that. And then there's a thing about cars dropping when they crash onto the people below, and all sorts of things that need to be worked out. So I bet you're right. Yeah, there's all sorts of technology out there that's way more advanced than what we actually are able to, purchase now, or have access to.
Absolutely. And it's just exciting to see what'll happen 6 months from now or, 18 months from now. The exponential development is, that's one of the most exciting things about, and the way it applies to, our industry, to entertainment, is really phenomenal. And yet what's so interesting is that, the kind of the essential elements of drama, of comedy, still are unchanged for thousands of years. The things that interested the Greeks are the same as probably the things that interested just cavemen sitting around a cave, kind of recounting, that day's hunt. And those are the same things that really kind of interest us watching, Hulu or Netflix or whatever. Yeah. So it's that thing that's so interesting about art in general, which is that synthesis of, the eternal, things that just will always be interesting and important and, just engaging, with new forms, with new methods of storytelling, new forms of narrative. And I think that's one of the great things about the entertainment business, about film and TV, is that those forms are constantly evolving. And so allow storytellers to tell those age-old stories in just such shockingly brand new ways. That's what's really cool.
Yeah, you were mentioning something earlier about keeping someone engaged
Mm.
by, holding their attention. And I think that's the whole thing. See, in my own personal philosophy, stories are everything as far as humankind is concerned.
Mm.
That's what connects us. And I believe a long, long time ago in the caveman days, we didn't have language, right? The reason behind language was because we needed to express the hunt of the day, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so we were drawing pictures on cave walls, to explain something, but that wasn't enough, right? That didn't quite tell the whole story.
No.
So we evolved from that to sign language, right? And then from sign language, we started putting some sounds to that, and then I fell, ooh, I made that sound,
Yeah.
And then from one thing to another, it evolved into our language.
Yeah.
And it was always, and that's what I think filmmakers, with all these tools tend to forget, the whole heart of everything that connects one person to another, and then you bring together the internet, right, which is the key to it all too, is the story. So you have
100%.
a connection to people. We were talking about engaging with people in coffee shops, and things like that, and it's through storytelling.
I'm with you. I mean, I think that's one of the things that most moves me and drives me as an actor, is the fact that things like that really reveal the connections that human beings have with each other, regardless of their own language, regardless of their own kind of national origin or cultural origin. I really do believe there's so much more that unites us as human beings than divides us.
Yeah.
And just a desire to watch other human beings live out their lives on camera or on stage, or tell us about our own lives on camera or on stages. I mean, that's just a kind of instinctive draw that we have, that everyone has. I don't know anyone who doesn't enjoy a story, whether it's playing a story on a video game, whether it's reading a story in a book, watching it in the theater, watching it on TV. There's some kind of primal draw that we have to that, that everyone has to that.
And everyone wants to have this, sorry to cut you off. You were talking about video games and things, and that's the other part where some people tend to say, oh, just read a book and forget about all these phones and technology. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. We are drawn to the expansion and the evolution of storytelling because we want to be a part. We've always wanted to be a part of somebody else's story. We want to feel what they're feeling with somebody else's. It's not that we don't want to be ourselves. It's like that's more how we connect to our inner self, is through other people's stories. I know that may sound weird, but that's the whole reason why we're evolving with technology into, we've gone from 3D to 360, VR, AR, and, the Star Trek hologram, right? We want to get there. And the whole thing is we want to feel the story by being a part of it, which is why theaters are so cool too, because, all the lights are off, the sound is up, the effects are up, you forget. You're sitting there for 3 hours.
I got together with a friend and I co-produced and performed in this VR version of a scene from Macbeth, from Shakespeare's Macbeth. And, number one, the story is probably my favorite story of all time, just the story of Macbeth. But the way, the opportunities that VR, it's not like legit VR, it's actually just like 360 video. So there wasn't any kind of actual direct interaction from the viewer with the scene. You couldn't move around the room, you couldn't pick up books, or you couldn't, directly speak to the actors. Right. You were passively there, but you could look all the way around the room. And also we had a few different things that split the sphere, so it would be simultaneously the external of Macbeth talking to other characters with what's going on in his imagination in the other kind of 180 degrees of the sphere. So if you looked behind you, you would get a sense of his memory, of his fantasy, of his imagination, whatever.
Hey, that sounds cool.
It was really, really cool. It was a really wonderful experience. And And I guess what I'm trying to say is that, these new forms of technology really, just allow for new ways of exploring and telling these stories. But the story itself doesn't really change. It's still, it's this story that we were telling 500 years ago, 400 years ago. And, that's the thing that really matters. Not how it's told, but what's being told. It's just that these new technologies allow, additional layers of audience involvement and interaction. And I'm sure at some point down the road, audience members will be able to tell their own stories. So, there might be at some point kind of option A, B, and C. And they'll all have been filmed maybe by a filmmaker. But, as the audience with a headset on or whatever, you choose to walk through the door rather than climb out the window. Now you're onto a new, different story. And, because you're actually in the scene yourself, you're kind of an actor. So you're kind of, you're really, the audience member will be in control of the film / video game / theater piece, him or herself. And that's crazy exciting. That's what's really cool.
It's like the alternate ending in DVDs, remember, where you would say you want to have this ending or that ending or that ending,
Yes.
And you would pick which one you wanted to go through, with the remote. That's very interesting. And also the other thing about stories is it's a wonderful vehicle to drive a message.
For sure. But I don't know. I mean, there's different views on this, right? Because I don't know if the filmmaker's message is the one that's most important. I think the audience's interpretation of the film, the message that the audience creates, is the one that really matters. And in fact, really the kind of only one that exists. Because if you've got 10 people watching a movie, they're all probably going to have a different view on the movie. That movie is going to mean 10 different things to those 10 different people. Maybe just subtly so. Maybe broadly they're very similar, but there will be slight differences. And maybe there'll be huge differences. Someone might say, well, no, this is a story about, how you always have to live by the law and, do right. And then someone else might say, no, actually, this story is about, sometimes the thing you have to do is cut corners because you have, the cards stacked against you. So there might be two very different interpretations of the movie, and they're both true. They're both correct.
But their perception, if you have a story told in a really, if it's done very well by the director, then the viewer is going to perceive it just as the director has built it to do, like almost like in a car, right? The person, the guy that made the car or the girl, whatever, the company that makes the car, they design it around that driver and the passengers, so that when they get in the car, they feel, oh, this is a really smooth ride, and then they go, well, yeah, we built it like that for you to feel that.
I think that's true. Let me offer a different perspective, though, because I reckon, especially now more than ever, people are able to kind of, use, like, this is the nature of hacking, right? I don't know the first thing about hacking or computer coding. I don't know anything about it. But it's so fascinating to me because what it does is it's individuals taking something that someone's created for purpose A and modifying it or kind of adapting it for their own kind of purposes. And, those can be nefarious, it could be stealing money, or it could be positive. It's using it now for this other thing that the creator didn't originally intend it to be used for, but is still a really effective use of this object. And, I think, applying that to art, I think that's, a filmmaker might set out with a certain story. But I really, really, really do believe, and from my perspective as an actor, that when I perform on stage, the story isn't mine. The story is the audience's. It's up to the audience to take away message. So when, at a Q&A, say after a performance, the audience say, so what was your message? What were you trying to say? In my answer, and I really truly believe this, is so irrelevant. It matters to me, because I've got to have a kind of story and I've got to have an objective and I've got to, really want to be saying something. So it matters to me in my process. But once I've done my work, like, that doesn't matter to you, Mr. Audience Member. What matters the only thing that matters now is what you saw, is the story you created for yourself, based on your own personal history and your own kind of experience, and what you came to see. So I think it's really the audience. It's the kind of, the user is the person who, is the kind of end creator, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that the line between those two perspectives is not cut and dry. I think it depends on the audience member. I mean, also, if you want to go there, I mean, the audience, sometimes maybe they weren't paying attention throughout the movie, so they're wondering, well, what was the message? Like when I'm looking at the films I just went through this. I watched them all, especially ones that I'm going, huh? What was that about?
Yeah,
and I'm
absolutely.
going, you know what? Let me watch that again.
Sure.
And then if I still am kind of a little, I'm not sure, what I'm supposed to get with this, I'll give it another day or something, and then I'll go back to it, because sometimes our own, you could not be feeling something when this, as an actor.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
It's so important that you get into the zone, right?
Yeah.
And you have that time before your scene and things like that for that purpose and for that reason, because you're not able to it helps a lot. So I'll wait a day or two, and then I'll go back and I'll see it. I won't see it more than 3 times. If I have to watch a film more than 3 times, then, I'm sorry, I'm not getting it. I doubt anyone in the audience is going to get it.
Yeah.
So,
well, you're incredibly patient. I mean, giving it, 3 watches, alone, that's amazing. No, I think from an acting perspective, I think you really see this. I know this for myself as an actor, and I see it in other actors. The difference between, I think, a good performance and a bad performance is whether the actor knows what he or she wants to do from moment to moment. And that's similar to filmmaking. If the filmmaker knows what he or she wants to say moment to moment, then there's a momentum to it, and then there's got some meaning to it. Now that director's meaning might not be the one that the audience walks away with, but there'll still be some kind of energy there. There'll still be a kind of cohesion there that the audience will pick up on, and then we'll keep them watching, and there'll be some meaning there. There'll be some central kind of spine to keep everyone moving forward. So yeah, as an actor, when people haven't really fully done their homework, and they don't really, when they say a line, they don't really know what that line means, or at least they haven't created for themselves, a meaning for that line. And it's just this kind of vague, well, yeah, I don't really know what you're saying here. That's when it's not so great. Whereas, as long as there's some kind of, what we call like an objective, some kind of purpose behind every line, the audience member might read it in a different way, but they'll still read something that's active, and something that, that is driven to accomplish something.
And that goes to the director as well, because if he has a really good vision and the story, and that's important to the director, when he's directing the actors, he's going to go to you and he's going to say, look, this is my intention with this scene, and this is what you're feeling, but also connecting it to the whole theme of the film. But in this one moment, this is what you're feeling and why. And he's trying to, or she is trying to get that from you,
Absolutely.
the viewer.
I mean, I think it's a really interesting thing, because without question, the director's desire, the director's wish is first and foremost, right? So I might think that the scene is about A, and when the director says no, it's not at all about that, it's about B, then that is what the story is about, and I change my work to match that. But I think, in my experience as an actor, I think what directors like is just actors bringing something, even if it's a choice that isn't right, quote unquote right, even if it's kind of completely off base. That the director is horrified by it and says, no, that's completely wrong. Some actors, and I've been there myself, will sometimes say, oh my God, I'm terrible. I don't know what I'm doing. It's just, I messed that up completely. It's not. The director actually thinks, wow, okay, no, it's not that. It's actually this. But because you've made a strong choice and because you've kind of been bold and, risked, getting it wrong, it actually, the director can say, no, it's not that, but do it this way. And then, then it's much easier that way. I think the trouble is when actors kind of fall into this kind of beige, well, I mean, it's not wrong what you're doing. It's fine. But it's not strong. It's not kind of this. It's not an active choice. It's just kind of, all right, yeah, that's fine. I don't really have much to say about that, but that's kind of what you don't want to have. You want to have someone either say yes, 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 you nailed it, and that's kind of the best thing. But also, if somebody says no, not that, this. As long as someone reacts strongly to what you're doing and can see what you're doing, I think that's the goal.
Yeah, it's a communication too, because sometimes, I mean, we're talking about humans, and sometimes people connect differently with other people, and sometimes you can see that I've been on sets where the director is not really connecting with an actor, and it makes it horrible for that actor because they kind of feel like an outcast. Because they're connecting with one actor but not with this other one, and you have to, as a director, and whether you're a mobile filmmaker or whatever, the story is important, but you also have to learn and to take care into how you address and how you communicate with your cast, and let the AD communicate with the crew, but your main focus is your cast.
I think that's really interesting. I mean, I can only really come at this from the perspective of an actor.
Yeah.
And I've definitely encountered some directors. There's just such a split between directors who like working with actors and then other directors who just are kind of, reluctant to work with actors or don't really enjoy it, or maybe think actors are kind of weird, or, a bit of an encumbrance. And there's, as an actor, it's obviously much nicer to work with a director who maybe has a bit of acting experience themselves, has taken an acting class, or understands that actors are kind of vulnerable, do you know what I mean, and often insecure, because what they're doing is something that they're really passionate about and they care a huge amount about, but it's obviously there's a huge amount of potential for failure there. So when some directors, I think, can get bound up a little bit too much with the specific shot, the way a shot looks, whether it's the kind of technology that needs to be involved, whether it's the technical aspects of racking focus, or all the stuff that's really important, right, but I don't think should be at the expense of individuals talking to each other. Those are the directors who really stand out, are the ones who are able to kind of speak an actor's language. That really, really just helps everyone. Not kind of pander to actors, not just kind of, try and make them feel good about themselves, but just communicate openly.
Everybody's there for a purpose and has the same goal, in the end. I actually, I as a favor to someone, I played a small role in a small film. It was a student film, thank God.
Nice. Amazing.
Because I'm not... I did enjoy acting when I was younger on stage, but in front of the camera is just a whole, it's completely, and you come from theater as well.
Sure.
There's a difference, you have to shift you have to get used to that. And,
absolutely.
And the thing is that when I left that part, right, and it was done, I really reflected on it, and I thought, and even during it, because you're pausing while people are setting up things and changing the scene and the angle, the camera, and all this stuff, and I was thinking, I don't have a part there on that side like I'm used to. My part is over here on this side, which I've never experienced before.
Yeah.
And it really gave me a different perspective that, I remember, I was a script supervisor, right?
Oh, okay. Well, I know the directors at USC because there was a bit of I was in the School of Theatre at USC.
Yeah.
And there's obviously their film school is one of the biggest. And so they would put the School of Theatre actors in collaboration with the School of Cinematic Art directors. And, you know, I think one of the things that they made the directors do was take an acting class, just to get a sense of the approach that actors bring to the project. And I think maybe also to, you know, I think maybe they want to kind of loosen the directors up a little bit, but also just kind of allow them to realize that, wow, actually kind of acting is, you know, it's, you know, in that moment when they say action, it's like, it can be quite a lot of pressure. So to kind of, you know, make sure actors are ready to just bring their work. Yeah, I think it's a valuable thing for direct. I think probably for anyone though, to take acting classes, you know, for like lawyers or business people. You know, I know in New York the big thing is taking improv classes. So you'll get lawyers and, you know, business people and you know, politicians maybe even taking improv classes because you know, just helps
quick
with
on your feet.
Absolutely, you know, builds confidence.
I wanted to ask you, there was a part in this film, Time to Pay Off Debts, and Conrad Mess, you were talking about the 3 days shooting in New York.
Yes.
And there was one scene that was last in the production, and he had to leave before you could film that. So
that's right. Yes. Because we were pushed for time. You know, as I said, it was a lot to crack out in 3 days, and you know, rather than rush through everything and it all be a little bit subpar, he made the wise decision of just making, you know, letting one scene go or postponing one scene, but making sure everything else we did was, you know, was exactly how he wanted it. And so I think we had like another scene or two to shoot. And so what he did was he just hired the venue again, got the same actors, the crew, etc., all back in one place, except he couldn't make it. So Conrad was there on set, but through Skype. So, I mean, I don't understand all the technicalities of how he got a feed of what was being shot. But it was a pretty quiet line. So, and I think he was speaking in Spanish as well through our AD, through Nayara, who I think she had a bit of a day that day, you know, just kind of translating from Spanish into English while kind of making sure everything was getting, you know, sent to and from the set to Conrad. But the thing is, from our perspective, well, at least from my perspective as an actor, like it was pretty straightforward. It was really no different from my experience. It was no different than if it'd been there in person. You know, it's just that he would say one thing in Spanish and Nayara would just repeat it in English. Then we'd just do what he wanted. So it worked incredibly well. It didn't feel at all like any kind of hindrance or, you know, at least from an actor's perspective. I think it was a bit of a tough one for Nayara, the AD. Who coped incredibly well. But no, from an actor's perspective, it was amazing. It was really efficient. You know, incredibly so.
They had to actually somehow. I mean, it wasn't about you guys seeing him, which that, you know, sometimes when you're directing, you're doing an eye to eye with the actor. But this was more like he was looking at you, he was watching you, and you were getting the cues from him. So there obviously was the lack of that, the eye to eye with a director. But this is in late 2014 at some point, right? Or was it late in 2014? I think it was, but maybe I think
that's when it came out. Yeah, it was. I think that's exactly right.
Yeah, because I know the film festival was in April of 15, and he had just finished the film. Literally.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember just thinking on the day, could this be more 21st century than what we're doing right now, which is shooting on an iPhone, you know, using Skype for the director,
right.
who's not there in person, but is still working amazingly well. And then soon it's going to be uploaded and broadcast on the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, none of those things, not one of those things existed at least in a commercial sense, 25,
Right.
30 years ago. So I mean, what an incredible thing to be able to be part of. Yeah, really amazing.
That again is driven by the passion to achieve that goal. That's why I love this industry and the film industry, because people will knock each other out to make it happen. The
Yeah.
magic. And then all anyone sees is, oh, what a wonderful film.
I know. My gosh, yeah, wow, that looked so easy.
Right?
But I think that's the goal is, when it looks easy,
You've
you've done
done
your
it right.
job. Yeah, exactly. When it looks as though it's kind of effortless. It's like when you see figure skaters at the Olympics
Ah,
and they're, spinning around in the air 4 times and then doing another spin. And it just looks so fluid as though, it's just second nature to them. I'm sure it is second nature to them because of all the hours they've spent just, falling and tumbling, but eventually becomes part of who they are. And it's just incredible to watch.
what would you tell filmmakers when it comes to getting, I mean, obviously you have to have a good story, but
Mm.
do you have any advice that you would be able to give them to achieve something notable that you saw about, even working with Conrad Mess on, have you worked on a lot of, since then, even, was this your first iPhone film or mobile film?
It's my first, still my only iPhone film.
Oh,
So yeah, no, really an amazing thing to be part of. I mean, I've since been working on, so I shot kind of more, traditional film. It was like a World War II thriller earlier in like kind of mid 2017, mid last year.
yeah. That
It had
sounds
like,
interesting.
it was great. It was really, really wonderful film. Do you know Carrie Elwes? He was in The Princess Bride, and Jason
Oh,
Patrick and Judd Hirsch and a bunch of really
Judd
well known
Hirsch from The
quality
Breakfast
actors.
Club?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, so really, really top
Actors.
actors. So yeah, so they were all, so yes, and that was kind of more traditional, it was, I can't remember exactly what it was shot on, I think maybe a red or something.
Probably.
But still, kind of more of a traditional, kind of format, but still the kind of, the technology with which it's shot, I don't think matters as much as the approach of the filmmakers. Because anyone can bring a kind of professional attitude, just making sure everyone's disciplined, prepared, on time. It doesn't matter if it's shot on an iPhone or, 35 millimeter. It's this, the approach is still going to be the same. I think in terms of, I don't know, maybe this is kind of going, I don't know if this is answering your question, but I think a lot of directors have to be their own writers. Do you know what I mean? In order to get their first chance to shoot something, it'll probably have to be something that they've written themselves. And I think, the way most actors approach a text is to look at what their character wants from moment to moment. And so to write a scene, whether it's like a 5-minute scene, short film, that you're going to then shoot on your iPhone, to make sure that those two characters, what they want from moment to moment, and is reflected in their speech, in their interactions. So even if it's boyfriend and girlfriend, trying to decide what movie to go and see, each one is probably going to want something from the other. There's going to be that conflict of interest. I mean, that's what drama is conflict. Conflict doesn't have to be people murdering each other. Conflict can just be, a mother wanting her daughter to wear like this pair of shoes, and the daughter wanting to wear the other pair of shoes. Now, that's not going to change the world. It's not going to, cause an apocalypse.
Right.
But there's conflict of interest, and that's there's competing interests there. So that conflict is what's really interesting. So just making sure that is present. I don't know. I think it's just as people, as humans, we're just like super nosy. Actors more nosy than anyone, so curious just to know who people are, what's going on with them. And so to watch, I think that's why we love watching, film, TV, theater, is because we get to see a little glimpse into other people's lives, kind of fictional people, but they're still other human beings that we're watching.
Yeah.
And how are they going to go about achieving what they want, when that person's standing in their way? So making sure that kind of conflict is there. But I mean, in terms of just running a set, I think just making sure everyone, it's just the simple stuff that's often the hardest to accomplish, which is just making sure that, everything runs on time and, people show up on time and, all the actors are prepared, because I mean, that stuff's not a guarantee. And it just sets everything back if people aren't ready.
I learned that if you're not there at least 5 minutes early from the first time that they give you, preferably you're there 15 minutes early.
Yeah.
And otherwise you're already late. So
100%. I mean,
something to get used to.
I 100% agree. I mean, I don't know if it's because it's like some Anglo-Saxon thing in me that I loathe being late. I just can't, I don't know if it's like growing up in England where people get really sniffy about that kind of thing. But it just helps, especially as an actor, because you can't, it's really hard just to turn up and then just do it. It's like you mentioned earlier on about being in the zone. You just got to give yourself time and space to kind of get settled and think, all right, this is what I want to do now. This is where I am. So you're not rushed, going from everyday life of feeding the dog and taking the kids to school or, whatever the demands of life are, to then going to work, that you can't, it's really tricky to switch abruptly from one to the next. So just by getting there, 10, 15 minutes early, you can sit, you can have a coffee, you can just allow yourself to get in that headspace for, all right, this is what I'm doing now.
Yeah, and from the other perspective of the crew, time is everything. Time is everything. You're running by seconds when it comes to setting up the set, and everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And then you have to, even the backup plan can go wrong. So you have to have a backup to the backup of the backup. So it's very important. It's more important to be there, and people will be all right. Oh, the filmmaker, the actor is late, and they'll be more patient with that. But when it comes to the crew, and there's never an excuse. I mean, people think, oh, well, I'm going to be the director, so I can do whatever I want. It's the CEO, the good CEO of the company, he's there, or she is there early.
Yes. Oh my gosh. But I mean, that's such a key to success in any industry.
Yeah.
Is that, the thing, this is what's so funny to me, is that it's so easy to be early. Like,
right?
If you have to leave half an hour, if you have to get up half an hour early or whatever.
Yep.
There's nothing really. I mean, I know people have, everyone's got complex lives. If you've got family and kids and stuff, it's even more complicated. But, I guess the goal is just to control as much as you can. Because, as you said, there's so much else that can go wrong. There are so many moving parts. It's tough to keep everything in check. There's so much that's out of one's control that the elements that you can control, just do. So if you can, whatever you have to do to make sure that you've got one less thing to worry about, which is being late, then I think do whatever you can to take care of that.
Yeah, it's
and
the
I
worst
think,
thing.
especially
even if you try sometime, like in my case, not that I've tried to get there late, but there are times when I'm going, oh my God, I'm running late, because I'm usually running early. So there are times it's like, oh my God, I'm running late. Oh my God, I'm running late. And then I get there and I'm all, wow, I'm still early.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. And it just makes such a difference, because then when it is time to actually work, there's no stress. There's no, or at least no additional stress of, turning up kind of sweaty and out of breath and, aware that everyone's kind of, wow, looking out of the corner of their eye at that person.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's the mistakes that happen when you're stressed and when you're nervous because you were there late and things like that. They can happen. And in the film industry, you can't do that. That can cost a lot.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Like, time is almost literally money.
Yeah.
So literally every second counts.
And filmmaking with a phone, I mean, it is one way to get your foot in the door, to dive into the filmmaking industry. It's not something you should take lightly. That, my advice for filmmakers and even the actors is to treat it. Yes, you're gonna. This film is gonna be made on a phone. but it's not something nonchalant. You
Yeah.
should really make the effort, and especially you're working with other people,
Mm.
and you start to learn this game when it comes to respecting other people and to respecting time and the effort that is involved, and everybody that's on set has a part to play, from the
Yeah.
characters to the PA to the grip, and everybody, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just, there's no excuse for it. I have a question for
I'm with
you.
you. I mean, yeah. Go ahead, please.
Um, I no, go ahead and say what you wanted to say, because this is going to be the last. Yeah.
I got you. Yeah, it's just interesting to me because I think there's, you know, for like kids, whatever, who just want to get together and, make a fun film. Um, that's one thing that's different, and I think that's beautiful if they can now have pretty much professional quality technology to create something cool, then that's really awesome. But as soon as you're doing something, now in a professional standpoint, or you want it to be professional quality, then that's absolutely when all that discipline has to come in. Like I was growing up a chorister, like a choir boy. I was in the Queen's Choir, like they call it, the Chapel Royal.
Wow.
And so we'd travel around with her, and I joined when I was 8 and left when I was 13 or 14. And so from the age of 8, it was professional performance, because you're getting paid. They didn't pay us directly; they paid our school fees, but still, you're getting paid to do a job, and so there's no room for kind of, well, I don't really feel like doing it today, or I kind of feel a little bit sick. I can't go in. It's that doesn't matter. Just get up and do it, and that's such a huge lesson that I've carried with me forever. Something that was really solidly drilled into me by my mother, who herself is a professional musician. That you wouldn't get Pavarotti or Placido Domingo saying, you know what, I didn't sleep that well last night, I just can't do it today. They'd do it, and they would do it superbly well because they're pros. So as soon as you want to do something in a professional way, then all of that discipline, as you put it, respect, has to properly be there. Otherwise, I don't really think there's any point in doing it.
Yeah, and good luck getting anybody else to work with you after.
Yeah, sure, 100%. Yeah.
So, okay. Well, I totally forgot to mention this one little game. Do you like to play games?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I'm an actor. That's what drama school is. Absolutely. It's theater is.
Well, wonderful. There's this game, I call it the shout out game.
Okay.
Actually, I call it It's Shout Out Time, but it's a
Shout out
shout
time.
out game.
Okay, I love it.
It's a 20-second slot, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm going to give you 20 seconds to perform this thing. What I wanted you to do, and I didn't even put any thought into this because I completely forgot.
Mm-hmm.
But different people, I have them do shout outs of, the, like in the Academy Awards, or their favorite films, their favorite music, things like that.
I got you.
What I'm thinking about with you, though, if you don't mind, is your favorite characters.
That I've played or that I've seen?
Both. I mean,
Okay.
I'm sure you've played characters that you've seen as well.
Mm-hmm.
But favorite characters, I think it would be better for the listeners if they could connect with these characters. So maybe we should make it the characters that you've seen.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. All right. So I have a timer, so don't be alarmed, even though it is an alarm.
No, that's good. I'll be. Keep everything on track. That's exciting.
Cool. Okay. So ready?
Yeah.
Set and go.
All right. Macbeth, Hamlet, Han Solo, Tim Robbins' character from Shawshank Redemption. Let's go with Brad Pitt in Seven. Let's have a look at Aladdin. Let's go. That's it. I only named 5. It's not very many.
Well, hey, that was pretty good. Wow. That was actually impressive.
Well, I was thinking a little bit, as you were saying.
Dramatic actors there.
Oh my gosh. I mean, those are my favorite roles. I mean,
Yeah.
movies like Seven, all of those, kind of dark Shakespeare plays. I mean, those are the things that really, really I enjoy.
That's why you played in this film to time to pay off debts.
Absolutely
Yeah.
right. Yeah, bad guy.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting.
That
Well,
was great fun.
you played it really good. You were a pro at that.
Oh,
We were just talking
thank
about
you,
being a pro.
Susie. Oh my gosh, that's kind. Thanks.
No, thank you. Well, one of the things that we're gonna end this podcast. We went a little bit over an hour, which it just
It's
got really
flown by.
interesting. But it's a different perspective for mobile filmmakers because I think it does put that. We're throwing it back to you guys. If you're thinking about making a movie, it's great that you have a phone. You can do it, but also consider what we were talking about here about being professional and the techniques. And at the same time, don't be afraid to get creative, like Conrad Mess did, and the crew to make this happen with directing through Skype. That's interesting.
Oh yeah.
And do not underestimate the power of your story to attract actors such as Raphael.
There we go. Wow, that's absolutely true. No, and Conrad did that, and it was, great pleasure and an honor to work on it. And, incredible experience.
Definitely. Well, we're gonna say goodbye to our friends here and our listeners, and then we're gonna go to the bonus episode for our Patreon page, where Raphael is gonna talk. What were you gonna talk about again?
We're going to talk about some definitely juicy stuff that you definitely have to listen to.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Well, goodbye, listeners, and we'll see you on patreon.com/SBP podcast.